Hi guys, welcome to my channel Mindset Hug, and I'm doing a hidden pain interview series. And today I have with me Kelly Fyffe-Marshall, and Kelly
Hello,
Fyffe-Marshall
hello.
is a director, a social activist, a screenwriter, and award-winning director. Now, I just want to jump straight in, Kelly, and with the first question and say, how did you know that you wanted to be a director?
That's a great question. I've never been asked it before. Um, I think I always say like my journey in film is like a series of fortunate events.
Mhm.
And so like growing up, having family in radio really influenced me. And then kind of like being in theater as a child. And then like when I immigrated to Canada, I was in theater, but on the other side, like I was putting the plays on. A teacher had seen that I had like great leadership skills. My mom will say I'm bossy. My teacher will say I'm a leader. And so I like really honed in on that. And then like my high school that I went to had like a TV production course, which I really wanted to be a part of. And then like thought I wanted to be a producer, thought I wanted to do audio, and kind of like through a, I would say a discovery, realized that what I really wanted to do was tell the story I'd wanted to see as a child.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, for me, I wanted to be an air hostess, and as you can see, I'm not doing that now. So, but you was in the field, so you knew it. You navigated towards it. Now, Haven is your first award-winning short film. Now, can you please tell the viewers about this film and what got you to tell this story?
Yeah, so Haven is a 3 minute short film, and it is about children's sexual assault. It's interesting because I, at the time of making the movie, didn't know anybody that had been assaulted as a child. Didn't have any connection to the story, and essentially, I sat down with my DP, who's one of my creative partners, Jordan Oram, um, and we were just having a conversation about how we would like what we wanted to do in the industry, being young, being black, and just being creative and being in Toronto. And like, how could we? What do we like? We were just anxious to like get out there, and so we had this beautiful, inspiring conversation for like 4 hours, like we always do. And and the conversation we had regarding like two people in one room. What does that film look like? It could be cheap for us to shoot. We can make something happen here. And so like I went home and my time to shine is like 4 in the morning, and I just sat there and I thought about it. And I was like, who are two people I want to see in the room? And I said, black women.
Mhm.
And what would they be doing that I'd want them to see? And I was thinking about like as a black woman, what do I not see very often? And it's black women getting their hair done and in a positive way.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. And then I thought, okay, now that you're in this space, this little girl would feel safe. This would be her safe haven. What would she say to her mother? And then I thought about like how I could help my community. What are conversations I could start? And then I thought about this, and I thought about children's sexual assault and how it's a taboo, not just in the Caribbean community, in the Black community, but in most communities, and specifically in like immigrant communities. And I just thought about, okay, how could I make this film sting and last and stick with people? And so yeah, I wrote Haven.
Because every time I watch Haven, I cry. Like, and I've seen it
Yeah.
many a times. Like, and for something to hit you so hard, and you're like, wow, like that is definitely like go down in history. That is amazing.
Thank you. I
And
can't watch it.
you can't
Yeah,
watch
and
it.
I was there, and I can't. No, I don't really like watching my own films. I
Mhm.
find it very hard. I like watching the audiences watch my film,
Right.
but I find it hard to watch my own film, which is I don't know. It just because I guess my films are a part of me, so
Hmm.
it feels like I'm being vulnerable when I let people watch my film,
Right.
and like vulnerable to a room of like 300 people makes me like the anxiety just take over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't watch it.
That's interesting. I never knew that. Never knew that at all.
Yeah.
Like when you come up with a concept, do you think about the impact or just about the topic that you feel that needs to be seen?
Mm. I think about the topic. I think I've somehow automatically make it impactful, and I haven't figured out how I'm able to do that yet. Like I haven't found the science behind it. I just know that the way I write is impactful. But the first thing I think about is what is what. Well, actually, for me, my first thing I think about is emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the films we watch as children, or like the certain music videos or certain things, we attach an emotion to it. And so I'm thinking like when I feel an emotion, I'm like, it would be great to make a film where people feel this.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I start, and then it leads to the topic, and then it becomes impactful. But I really start with like emotion and feeling. Like there's movies I watched like when I was younger, like Love and Basketball is one of my favorite films,
Mm-hmm.
and just the feeling I have when I watch that makes, and even like Disney films when we were younger, you know, watching those films, that feeling you had, that's what I want to give to other people. And so, um, whether it be a good feeling or a bad feeling, grief or love or happiness, that's the feeling that I try to portray within the film.
Cool. Now, your short film Black Bodies has just won you a Canadian Oscar. Well done. How does that make you feel, and what was the story behind it?
It makes me feel really great. Like this little short that, like, it came from a very tough place for me. You know, I was involved in a racial incident in California where a
Mm-hmm.
white lady called the cops on me and some of my peers because she didn't think we belonged in the neighborhood because we were black, and ended up resulted in the 911 call resulted in us being surrounded by 7 police cars and a helicopter and being detained for breaking and entering, and like a whole fiasco. Like I filmed it and it went viral, and it turned into this huge incident. And so to know that, like, I'm from that, with that trauma, I decided to put it into a film, and to know that it came from such like a terrible experience
Mm-hmm.
to now winning like the biggest award in Canada that a short film can win, and we've subsequently also won other awards, act like on the same journey. And so it's so interesting. It's beautiful to see that I really can turn my trauma into art, and it can do
Mm-hmm.
well, you know. And
Yeah.
it's about also like the balance of the film is a good film regardless of the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the message. It's a beautiful film. And so yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. We've done all the things that they say you can't do with a short film. Very specifically, a film like ours is a micro short because it's
Mm-hmm.
4 minutes, and so we've done so many things that they told us we couldn't do. We really like, you know, we recently signed a distribution deal, and now it's going to be distributed. And so those are things that short films are not supposed to do. So it's been a beautiful ride, and we're making history in so
Mm-hmm.
many different ways,
Yeah.
which is beautiful.
Awesome. So your short films are very hard hitting. Have you always known this is a direction that you wanted to go in?
I wouldn't say always, I would say, but a majority of the time, I did know that I wanted to make impactful films and hard hitting films.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, as a child, I used to, I mean, it's the same thing. I watched people watching films, and I watched their emotion, I watched how they felt, and I was like, wow, like, people really let their guard down for 2 hours to watch this film. They go
Mm-hmm.
into this world and they experience these things. And I was kind of blown away, and I was like, wow, look how much power you have. And so, I mean, I was a good child, I guess, because I didn't say, "Oh, let me use it for bad." And I said, "Let me use
Yeah.
it for good." And so, yeah, I decided, like, okay, what can I do to help the world in
Mm-hmm.
these times when I have, because there's not really another time when you let your guard down like that.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, like, what can I do? What could I do with that time? And
Mm-hmm.
right now, I've been dealing with the 4 minutes, but like, what could I do if I had the whole 2 hours to change your perspective on something, to change your mind, to make you think about something? Like, you know, it's the best way to get to ignorant people because they're still letting their guard down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of like thought about that a lot. And like, I really enjoy, like, if I watch a movie and it's really good, I'll
Mm-hmm.
watch it again with a friend, but I'll watch them and their reaction. And I guess it's because I'm a people watcher, which makes me a great director. But
Yeah.
I'm always interested to see how people interact with things and react to things. And like, it tells me a lot about who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a roundabout way, that's the answer.
Hey, I didn't expect that, but okay. I'm glad that you used it for good and not for evil, because it makes me feel like people are like, "Mom, take over the
Yeah,
world."
that's what I should have done.
Now, as a screenwriter and a director, you get to see an idea from paper to screen. What is that journey like?
Hmm. I mean, it's an interesting journey. I'm very blessed to have a creative partner, Tamar Bird, who's been my producer from the beginning, and is my creative partner, like co-writer now. And so it normally is me like in solitude. So it's either like 4 in the morning or like I'm having a moment. A lot of my great ideas come to me in the shower, or when I'm high, in the shower. These are really great times. I mean, high in the shower at 4 a.m. really should be the trifecta. I need to try that. And so I come up with this idea, and most of the time it's just a feeling or an emotion or like a scene. And then like I talk it through with myself. I normally write it in my notes and kind of play with it for a while. And then when I feel like I have it, I'll call Tamar, who's very, she either loves it or she doesn't.
Okay.
You know, like she's not like, ah, she's like, this is terrible. And so I know I need her to love it. So I will build it to a place where I'm like, okay, I can soft pitch it to her, and then I'll pitch it to her. And depending on her reaction, it's depending on how far it goes. And so specifically with Haven, like I pitched that to her and she was like, this is beautiful, don't touch it. When I sent her the script, she's like, this is beautiful, don't touch it. And then we kind of sat down and said, okay, what does this look like? Who do you want to be in this film? And what does it look like going out? And what is your intention? That's something that we always think about a lot. Is like, what is the intention of this film? Is it just for the community? Is it to get us further in our career? Is it to heal? Is it to like, what is the intention? And that's what we can do. And for her, she prefers if my intentions aren't like, let's take over the world, let's, get $1 million off of this. She's like, if we have pure intentions and it's just like, yo, let's help the community or let's just talk about this, then we know that it can get further, which is what we did with Black Bodies too. And so we start with that. We have that conversation, and then we kind of go our separate ways. Kind of like she does her production, so she like finds the location and finds the people, the crew, and everything like that. And thinks about budget, and then I go the other way and creatively, and I get the script together, and then we kind of meet back and we do the casting, and yeah, and we cast the film, and then we film it, and then we edit it, and then we sit down again with this film and say, okay, now what is the intention and where do we want to go and what is our strategy? And then we go from there.
So thanks, Tamar. That's because otherwise some things would be on the shelf and we wouldn't be saying, whoop, behaving and Black Boys.
Right? Yeah, 100%. Being able to have that person to bounce ideas off is really important. And having that support system, knowing that you're not in it alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to like be like, is this a great idea? I don't know, like in my head, this is like the best thing ever. And she's like, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, I thought about that. And then the whole idea just crumbles. And you're like, okay, we'll do something else. That's fine. But yeah.
Ooh. Now, I want to ask this one. How do you manage to take people on an emotional, eye-opening journey in such a short time?
I don't have the science. Like I'd love to know. Like there's so many times I turn to Tamar and I'm like, how do I do this? Right. And I honestly think I guess one of my journeys was that, before I was writing short films before Haven, none of them were really bumping. Not all of them were bumping for me because I was following the rules.
Right.
It was beginning, middle, end. And I was following like the act 1, 2, and 3, and like the story arc, and then we like the height of the story in the middle, and then we wrap it up.
Right.
And then I went to a film festival that I like truly admired, which is TIFF, which we ended up being in this year. And TIFF is like one of the biggest film festivals. I think it's like number 2 in North America. Sundance is number 1. And I went to the festival and I was watching the short films and I was like, none of these have an end. So somebody just leave you hanging. And then I sat there and I was like, whoa, this is why it always bumps for me, because I have an issue wrapping up things. I have an issue with making sure, like, after we reach the height in the middle of the movie, what do we do after that?
Right.
And so I realized for me, like, my thing is that I want you to wrap it up. That's the best way for me to be impactful, is if I give you an issue and I don't wrap it up for you. And so that's what we did with Haven. Like, I gave you to this child who'd been sexually assaulted. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
What are you going to do about the people around you? And so even with Black Bodies, like, at the height of it, it's this, I won't give it away, but there's, the police, the racial injustice in the film doesn't happen in the middle of the film. It happens closer to the end. And what you do with that grief and that pain and that sorrow is up to you.
Right.
And I hope that it's to fight for Black lives.
Because I noticed that with your films, they are definitely like, you have to have a conversation afterwards. You can't just watch it and be like, oh yeah, that was great. Like, oh, that was good. Yeah. It's like,
and
what did you feel? Like, did you feel what I felt? Like, you know, like, what would you do in a situation? It opens up the doors for conversations to be had, and they're conversations that definitely do need to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's just the easiest way. That's the easiest way for me to be impactful, because I can impact you in your head, but unless you have a conversation and talk it out with somebody, nothing's going to change. And so making sure that I incite these conversations is super important for people to like really sit down and take it in. And I'm into, like, my films are like 3 to 4 minutes now, and I can introduce the topic and make you think about it for how long. Like, I have friends who like, and not even friends, even like people that message me on Instagram and they're like, yo, I watched Haven 3 years ago and I can't stop thinking
about it. Same. I do love Black bodies as well, but like, Haven is my favorite. Like, that gets me like on a whole different level. Like, you get to, every time I watch it, it's like I've never watched it before, because I'm always put back in exactly in that same situation and that twang, and I'm just like, oh my god, like their bottom lip starts going, and I'm just like, oh yeah, definitely excellent job. Have you faced any challenges working in the film industry?
Yeah, I think because I persevere, I don't think about the challenges as often as I should. Or like, and also, I mean, I have 2 reasons why the challenges don't affect me as much. But I think my challenge is like just the intersection of where I stand. Being a young Black female, especially with locks in this industry, and being in charge, being in a position of supervisor in any way, being the director of the ship, people don't want to listen to me. They've made up their mind that the captain of the ship should be a white man. And so when I show up, they're automatically like, oh, your hair, makeup, or your BD, or your this. And I'm like, no, but you're fired. And so that's kind of that's something that I've had to struggle with quite a bit. And I've dealt with bouts of racism. Like, the set is a place where, unfortunately, the culture is very similar to like even construction sites. And so that has been something that I've had to struggle with. But I mean, at this point now, I kind of have a name to myself, and there's a little bit more respect in the industry. And so I don't have it as much. But I think, like, for me, community definitely helps. Like, I have the community around me, and I have my sisterhood around me, and we're all in the same industry. And so we work through it together. I also now have this, like, I now, when I walk onto set, demand more because I have more confidence.
Yeah.
And so that has definitely helped quite a bit.
So you did a TEDx youth talk in 2018 entitled Make Ripples Where You Are. Now you have a foundation called Make Ripples. Can you tell me more about your foundation?
Yeah, so in 2018, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I did this TEDx just thinking about like how I could encourage other people to be global citizens. Like, I use my film to create impact, but like just letting other people know, like, you can create impact and change in any way you want to. You don't have to be an activist, but you should make small changes every day in order for us to be in the world that we want, to be to see the change we want to see. We all have to be a part of this change. And so I thought of what that sounded like to me, and it was Make Ripples Where You Are. And so when the racial uprisings happened in 2020 and we were in the middle of the pandemic, it was this new call that I put out. Like, a lot of people have come to me as an activist. A lot of allies have come to me and been like, I don't know what to do. And I just felt like I was so overwhelmed with just the grief of George Floyd passing and Ahmaud Arbery being murdered and Breonna Taylor being murdered, and the list of how all those people being murdered. I didn't want to handhold you in your activism. I didn't want to handhold you in your allyship, and allyship is partnership. And so I thought about what could I put out that could be like this rally call for people to understand and then not have to ask me. And so I put out a post on Instagram talking about Make Ripples Where You Are, and it went viral. And I was like, okay, so this really resonates with people. And a lot of my circle was like, yo, we got to do something with it. And so we turned it into a foundation. There's 5 founders. and we thought about like how could we put this out as a thing. Essentially, it's a foundation that just helps you with actionable change. You know,
Mhm.
something's happening in the world, and we'll point to it and we'll say like, this is what's happening. This is how you can help. You know, it
Right.
doesn't have to be overwhelming, but essentially, make ripples where you are is the rally call for you to make change in all of your spaces. So in your community, in your workspace, in your house, with your friends, with your family. Do you have a racist grandfather? You know, is your cousin homophobic? Like, is your space, when I walk into the spaces that you invite me into, is
Mhm.
it safe for me?
Right.
And that's your job. Your job is to make all of the spaces in the world safe for everybody.
Right.
All the spaces you touch should be safe spaces. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm telling everybody, that that's the only way that we're gonna find the change that we need.
Mhm.
And so that's the foundation, is just helping people to make those actionable changes daily.
And it's something it's so small, but it makes a massive impact. Because even when you're saying it, I'm
Yeah,
just like, when everything was happening, the first thing everyone's thinking they have to do something that is so major to make it
yeah,
impact. And it's like, it's not, it's just something so small by simply saying that. Like I said, if you have a racist grandfather and he's like spouting his mouth off, but you actually turn and say to him, like, that's not okay. Instead of just being
yeah,
like, oh, don't worry, that's granddad. That's just the way he is. That's the way he's
exactly.
always going to be. No, let's address that situation and be like, actually, that's not okay. And this is why it's not okay. So when my friends
Yeah,
come around, I don't have to excuse you. I can actually introduce you and not feel embarrassed. So yeah, it's the small things
yeah,
that make a big
exactly.
difference.
Mhm.
Now, where does your drive and passion for activism come from?
It's a big question. I think it comes from like growing up and being othered, you know, in so
Mhm.
many different places, and wanting someone to have fought for me.
Right.
And so how can I fight for other people? And I that has that yeah, that's really where it is. It's just like, and then also growing up around people who, when there was a fight, I was like, yo, we gotta fight for this. And they're like, no, somebody else will do it. And I was like, who's somebody else?
Yeah.
It has to be us.
Hmm.
Like, if we don't fight for it, then like, do we care? You know? And I mean, I'm also an Aries, so I'm also like fire driven and like head first. And so yeah, that was it. But it was like, okay, how can I, yeah, it was the fight that I needed, the person that I needed when I was younger to fight for me. And
Hmm.
it is like, if I don't fight, then who will?
Very true. Now, this is the big one, which is
Mhm.
about what this whole series is about. Is, have you experienced hidden pain, and if so, how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Is my hidden pain still hidden? Probably. Um, I think my hidden pain would definitely be mental health issues,
Hmm.
which I think is like the easiest hidden pain to have. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I think everybody struggles day to day with different mental wellness issues. And so for me, I've had depression for quite a bit of my, I would say, like, of my life,
Hmm.
but very specifically after the incident in California, having dealt with that in such a high capacity, like dealing with the actual incident and then dealing with the press after, like we did press for like 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
not really having the resources to deal with what that looks like, and nobody around me having the resources because it's such a rare thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then also thinking like a lot of people that go through these incidents die.
Yeah.
My lawyers, I was their only living client.
Wow.
So that kind of thought process, and then just feeling alone because there was no one in my immediate circle that I could really turn to and be like, this is what happened, and I don't know how to verbalize this. I don't know
Yeah.
what the hell happened to me, and I don't know why I feel this way. Like, I definitely had like PTSD after, and I just felt like people were watching me, and yeah, it was a crazy, and that, my life couldn't stop.
Hmm.
And so that, I think that's definitely one of the times where I realized, like, you know, I have this hidden pain, um, and how am I going to move through this and move past this? And how I did move past it was, for a very long time I didn't talk to anybody about any of my mental health, my mental wellness issues. And so I, for the first time in a long time, started talking to people. and started talking to the right people. You being one of them, like, you know, speaking with you and you listening to me, and then actually giving me great advice and knowing who I was and like what I needed to do and who I was as a person was super important. So definitely talking to someone who's like licensed to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then I would say having that community around you who like has all been through their own things and can really like you can really have a conversation with them. Like I always say my sisterhood is what gets me through. And so being able to talk to my girls and be like, yo, this is what I'm going through. And then also to look at you and be like, yo, you're not okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Super important. And then my art, like turning to my art and being like, this is the feeling I'm feeling now. And I know that I'm not alone. I didn't make up this feeling. And so how can I then change this feeling into helping people? And so that's what it was. I really turned my pain into like a way for me to help other people. And so, yeah, those are, I think, the three biggest ways that I was able to kind of get through that scenario and understand that it was okay what I was feeling. I think, you know, a big part of when we hide our mental wellness is because we don't think it's okay. It's a taboo. We don't think it's okay to feel this way. And so knowing first that it was okay to feel this way really just helped me move and maneuver it and know that I wasn't going to heal overnight. You know, I was going to have to like really work on it and figure out what were the triggers, what were things that were happening. I know that also that it's not me as a person. You know, a lot of times people think that their depression or anxiety or whatever that looks like is them as a human. But knowing that it can be a part of you but not be you was something that was super instrumental to my healing.
Oh, that's a lot, and it's nice for you to actually be honest and open in the sense of that you did keep it to yourself for a long time, because that's what a lot of people do, and it's that blanket of shame, and I don't know where it comes from, but it's just you embody it and you take it on, and then it's like you have to,
and it makes you worse.
Exactly. They say, like, you know, talking is the best thing ever. Sometimes but then it also is, talking is the best thing ever, but you also have to talk to the right people, because if you're talking to the wrong person, it can just make it 10 times worse. So definitely.
And I was also doing that for quite a long time. I was talking to the wrong people who made me feel worse. And so it really was learning to talk to the right people. And like, even I had read this thing on Instagram, it was talking about friendships, and it was like the best friendships are where you can show up your full self. And so that was something I was like, okay, cool. That's something that I definitely now I'm more cognizant of. But that helps a lot. You know, when you can come to someone broken and they can talk to you the same way that when you come to them when you're like fully put together, it really does help you a lot. You know what I mean?
And it is nice to have those relationships, because we kind of do get used to having relationships where it's like either you're the giver or you're the taker, and there's no in between, and it's like, but there is, like, it should be the fact that it's on both sides. Like, why can I not enjoy all of you instead of it being like, well, I can only either take from you or I've got to be giving? Like, I don't get it. But...
And what I always say is I don't deserve your happiness if I can't take your sadness. And so those friends that want to be with you when you're happy, but when you're sad, they're like, oh, this is too much, they don't deserve
you. 110%. Now, how important is self-care to you?
This is a great question. And a great question because I haven't figured it out yet. I struggle with self-care, you know. I mean, I'm a lot better now because of the pandemic. From pre-pandemic, I'm so on the go and just go that sleep feels like a punishment to me. Cleaning definitely feels like, anything that slows me down feels like a punishment. But I think for me, like, self-care, when I was like pre-pandemic, I was like, okay, cool, let's self-care. What do I do? I was like, it can't be like facials and that. Like, what else is there, you know? And so like the pandemic helped me to sit down and really think about, what does self-care look like to you? What does that mean for you? Because it's not the massages and the facials all the time. And so that was something that I really, and I haven't figured it out completely yet. I'm not there yet. But just knowing that, like, okay, sometimes it looks like reading a book. Sometimes it looks like smoking a spliff. Sometimes I should say that it's legal in Canada before I'm over here. Like, And sometimes it looks like for me, self-care is travel.
Mhm.
And so that's why I really had to have a real conversation during the pandemic because that wasn't available.
Yeah.
Um, and so my car got a lot more mileage on it, and I was driving to all these places. And then when we got into lockdown and we couldn't leave our house, we had to stay at home order. I was like, cool. Now what does it look like? When I can't go and just get a massage, when I can't like do the thing, all of my things felt like they were taken stripped away from me. And
Yeah.
so what did that look like? And I think I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I figured that out completely, but the world's opened up, so I can go travel now.
It's
I don't
definitely,
have
I
to
think
figure it out.
it did, the pandemic, it's like it had its blessings and its curses, I believe. So it's like it definitely forced people to really have that like reflection time and be like, okay, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? What does that look like? Self-care, because we are told self-care it's pamper time for women. It's always a pamper time. It's like, but it's not all that, because not everyone can always afford that. So
yeah,
let's not keep pushing that narrative of it is a you know, getting your makeup done and getting your hair done. It's not that. It is something as simple
yeah,
as, you know what? I'm tired. I'm gonna have a nap. Let me just
yeah,
nap, okay? Let me have a
yeah.
good old 30-minute
That's
nap.
something I conquered during the pandemic. I couldn't nap before the pandemic because it would be asleep, and that's because I was pushing myself too hard. But during the pandemic, I was like, these nap things are great. You know, everyone's always talking about naps because I will nap at 2 o'clock and not wake up until 2 a.m. and be like,
That's
that was
not a
a
nap.
long nap.
That's a sleep. Just like I have sleeps, okay? They're not naps, they're
Yeah,
sleeps.
and I think also for me too, like the pandemic was the last year and a half
Mhm.
has been the most successful parts of my career. Like
Mhm.
my career boomed during the pandemic. And so that looked like a lot of Zoom calls. That looked like a lot of like being on the news. Like I was on every news channel
Mhm.
from my apartment. And so like I was enjoying all the things I had wanted and manifested were all happening in my house. That wasn't the plan. The plan was to be on the red carpet. The plan was to be on the yachts, on the boats, on the plane. And so now it was like, whoa, all the things you've worked for here, but it's like here.
Mhm.
And so that really then I was busy all the time, but in one place.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like this kind of busy. I like the other kind of busy that I was doing before. And then I was really like, no, I actually don't like busy. And then like I might end up building my team up and having an assistant and having managers and the agents, and I'm like, they do the things, and I'm like, wow, I was really doing that before. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Why was I doing that? Um, and so a big part of my self care is
Mhm.
saying no.
Right.
Yeah, or like you can do that. Like I'm hiring you to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest part of my self care was saying no, and I think that's the word that I'll carry on and throughout, um, and hold dearly after post pandemic.
Yeah. But I think it's a good thing, because now you've got people in place to do all these stuff for you, the extra stuff, to say like trim the fat. So now when you actually do travel and you can actually fully immerse yourself and you can get the full enjoyment out of it, before you was having to travel and do up this stuff. Now you can fully just be like, I'm traveling. Yeah, I'll deal with it. Like, that's okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. See,
yeah.
it's a
So
blessing.
I mean, I'm definitely excited for the world to fully open up in Canada, very specifically for Canada to open up,
Mhm.
so I can be outside.
Yeah. It's hot though. It's hot. Hot. Right. So, what changes would you like to see in the world we live in today? Give me
I
three.
mean, very specific. Number one, I want everyone to make ripples where they are every day, all the time. Just
Mhm.
think about how you can make small changes in your life all of the time. Number two, I want us to fall into what we've learned during the pandemic, that it's not a rat race. You
Mhm.
don't need me to come to the, I mean, not very specifically me, but you don't need anyone to come to the office 9 to 5. They can work from home when their kid is sick. I don't want to hear about it anymore. We need to start, when when we were going through the pandemic, our essential workers were grocery store people and not the basketball player that you like to watch all the time. And so how about we give respect to those people that helped us get through this time?
Yeah.
And so those kind of changes, like my thing was like maybe we'll see more human, we'll see more human in humanity. And that's the change that I want to see. I want people to care more because we haven't cared like we've cared in this last 2 years. We haven't given the world a break until this last 2, like until we were forced to pause. And so I want us to hold tight to those things and not be like, okay, it's rat race time and just go run out. You know? And so that is something that I want us to do. And then the third thing is the third change that I want to see is how we take care of Mother Earth.
Right.
Super important because I like just like hearing the things like certain things are gonna be extinct and we're gonna have a lot of issues by the time we have grandchildren. Like nobody's worried about their grandchildren. Like they're not here yet, but like no one seems to be as worried about those numbers. Like that's crazy. And I think we live in that goes back to 2 and 3, 1 and 2. Sorry, like we live in a very selfish place. Everyone just thinks about them. And so like how can we take care of Mother Earth? How can we be more in tune to Mother Earth? How can we find ourselves? Like that's where I find God in Mother Earth. And so how do we protect that? How do we continue to push? How do we make sure the next generation understands that that's where God is? And how can we continue to connect with Mother Earth and be in partnership and not in opposition?
I couldn't have said it better myself. So we're coming to an end now. So what I want to know is what is next for Kelly Fyffe-Marshall?
What is next? What I can say for sure is that I'm not a planner. And that like everything that's happened, although it was the plan, it wasn't the plan. And so I'm very much like a go with the flow type person. And so wherever the universe takes me is where I'm going to be. I'm going to tell you a list of things right now that I have written down. And I promise you in like 3 years, I didn't do anything. Or maybe I did them and I did like a whole bunch of other things. I used to write this letter to myself every New Year's Eve about all the things I was gonna do that year. And every year I'd open it like, none of these. So I've let go of that. That's my self-care. But I would say right now I'm working on my first feature film, which is my first feature-length film. So it's 2 hours, an hour and a half long. That is a film that we're going to film in Jamaica. So I'm super excited to go back to my home and pay homage. And this is my love letter to Jamaica. It's an immigration story, so it's very similar to my immigration story from England to Canada. And so just kind of like my love letter to the experience, and just also showing that like all immigrants are the same and we all go through something very similar. And what does that look like? And just have fun also, like go to Jamaica and have fun and film. So that should be next year, beginning of next year. We're supposed to be this year, but the pandemic had other plans. I'm also working on a TV series called He's One of Us. And that's about a Black man who becomes a cop, but also is like from a certain neighborhood, so like a hood man, I guess. And like he has to straddle the line. Who is he? And they both think that he's one of them, but he really has to like straddle this line between what it's like to be a cop and what it's like to be a Black man. And in this day and age, that looks like two things that are opposite. And so that's the series. We have the production company called Sunflower Studios. We're putting out some projects through Sunflower Studios, which is super exciting. Make Ripples is becoming more of a global name. You know, we just launched in June, and so making sure that that kind of blossoms the way that it deserves to. And I think that's really it. Yeah, just like work and more work, and like I want to like do as many series and features, and now that my name is out there and people know who I am and I have all the accolades, how can I use this to be on a bigger scale? And so growth is really what is next.
Cool. Thank you, Kelly, for this awesome interview. Like, I'm so happy. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you for being honest and open and giving me like an awesome interview. Like, I'm just still like, I'm like, oh man, the questions are finished. Oh man, what the questions?
I know. I was like, yo, That's really the last question. Yeah.
I know it happened so quick, but once again, a massive thank you. And what I want you guys to do is like, comment, subscribe, and guess what? Share, because sharing is caring. So until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.